I've been playing more video games lately. Something you would know if you watch me on Twitch Wednesdays and Fridays, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Uh, there's a game that I think I've finally stopped. Like I'll probably go back and try it a little bit more, but I think I'm finally done, and I can give my complete opinion on it. And that is Hades. I like Hades a lot. On multiple levels. For starters, this is another rogue light, or might even be rogue legacy. I don't know all the subcategories for the rogue like genre of games, but basically nearly everything that was bugging me a bit about Dead Cells has been addressed in the way this is designed. So, like, for example, it used to drive me crazy in Dead Cells that basically everything was at the whim of the randomly generated dungeons, right down to the weapons that you were going to get. Not the powers of the weapons themselves. And given that certain weapons played completely differently, it was completely viable to just be stuck with weapons you don't like using. Whereas Hades, you pick your weapon at the start of your run. And they do give you incentive to try ones that maybe you don't really want so much, because there's basically a rotated, well, I think it's randomized, that one of the 6 weapons that you can use has, for that run, will have a bonus of the stuff that you can, of the rewards you can accumulate to then upgrade various stuff. And so that can incentivize you to spend time playing ones that you might otherwise not play as much, maybe even realize you don't mind them as much, or reaffirm that, yeah, no, I don't like the bow or the rail that much. But anyways, it gives you that initial control while still having all this randomized stuff go on in the run itself. You're what Olympian gods you get boons or powers from, that's random. When you meet them, you get a selection of 3 possible boons. Now, those 2 are random because the possible boons to get from a deity is a lot longer than 3. But out of those 3, you still get to choose. So it does a really good balance between having enough random elements to be fun to try one more time and to really hit that receptor where you're like, okay, just one more run just to see what I get this time. It really does hit that little just one more run, borderline addiction kind of thing, and it hits it well because it gives me just enough control to be like, I can do better. And it's not so random that like I get 2 rooms into it and I go, oh, heck with it. I also like the way the procedural generation works of the actual places you go through, because the rooms aren't randomly generated. The enemies in them are to a certain degree, but the actual rooms are constructed. It's just what rooms you encounter, the order you encounter them in, and what you'll win at the end of clearing out any given room. That's where all the randomization comes in. So it is a bit more customized in that way. So mechanically, this basically addresses every complaint I had about Dead Cells, and I love it. It did take me a little while to get used to isometric again, especially with controlling with the keys, with WASD, because I'm used to isometric gaming being something more like Diablo, which is basically all click, and the keys are only for like switching a power or spell that you're using. Your actual movement is not on the keys. So it took me a little while to get used to that, but I got the hang of it pretty well. And it does a very good job of unlocking things at a steady pace. Now, at this point, I've had virtually everything unlocked for a while, and I still kept going back and playing again because I was just enjoying doing it that much. But it's especially early on, it gives you just enough stuff that you can like, well, just upgrade this little thing. I'll just make this a little bit more powerful. Just add this little element to things. Ooh, I can unlock that. Ooh, I was so close to beating that boss this time. I bet you if I go through and I get the boons that work better for me, I bet you I can definitely get them. And so you're steadily becoming more powerful and unlocking stuff. And eventually you get to the point where like the first boss is never going to kill you again. But you know, you can still think back and remember when that first boss was handing you your ass over and over and over again. And if you want to just jack up the actual difficulty, there are later on modifications that you can do to just flat out make certain elements more difficult, whether it's making the bosses more difficult, whether it is upping the damage of enemies, whether it's giving you fewer options when boons come up, all sorts of things to customize if you really want to, if you basically have completed the story aspect and really want to feel challenged by it still. I don't want to dwell too much on the mechanics, though. Just know that mechanically, I love it. But I kind of want to focus on the story because it's fascinating to me that there is such a well-woven story into a game with permadeath that, you die, you just have to go back to the beginning and try again. And part of the reason is that Supergiant Games, who I've played one other game from them before. I've played Bastion, which I also like a lot. I like this better. But I also like Bastion quite a bit too. And they are very good at how they handle their narratives. And what's great about this is the fact that you keep dying and having to go back to the beginning isn't just acknowledged in the narrative. It is the narrative. You play as Zagreus, who is the son of Hades, the titular deity, who rules over Hades, which is, I guess, also the titular place. The Greeks weren't all that creative and like, this is Hades. Who rules it? Hades. Okay. But Zagreus wants out. He wants out of the underworld, and Hades doesn't want him to leave. And so Zagreus has to battle his way out. And every time he dies, that counts. Because generally when you die in, any game, not even just a roguelike or anything in that neighborhood, it's kind of treated like, that wasn't really what happened. That doesn't count. Here it absolutely counts. You die, you go back to the beginning, and Hypnos is there with some annoying, snarky remark about what it was that killed you. And Hades himself, who is the final boss of the game, that's not a spoiler, that's obvious. He's sitting behind a desk doing paperwork and going like, told you you'd be back here. And it's the actual story that you are dying and trying over and over and over and over again. Because the amount of dialogue recorded for these characters and these really well-rounded, well-shaped characters, the residents of Hades, the Olympian gods, all of these characters, I don't think I heard a single repeated line that wasn't like just an incidental when a character like didn't actually have something to say and they were just like, oh, hi. Like, that was a repeat. But, like, anytime they actually talked to me, I didn't hear a single repeated line of dialogue. And I talk to these characters a lot. I've clocked in over 160 hours on this game. I'm pretty positive it's the game I've sunk the most hours into of any game I've ever played up to this point. So, it's really, really well done. And, like, I can only imagine the programming nightmare must have been, because these characters will acknowledge something that happened to you recently, or they'll acknowledge a specific piece of equipment that you have on you at the time, or they'll talk about this thing that you just unlocked, or the thing that just killed you. They will have all this contextual information, but also the characters are really well rounded, and the actual graphical art is cool. It's fine. It works, gets the job done. The character art is real good, and if you don't mind me saying, a little bit horny. Like, this whole game is kind of low-key horny, and I love it. Especially because, like, that super fits the Greek gods. Oh, yeah. Like, there's a few of them who, like, okay, I don't get horny vibes off you, like, say, Artemis. But, like, most of them, oh, yeah, there's at least a base level there. And then you have characters like Aphrodite, where it's like, whew, okay. And you have the opportunity, you have incentive to actually get to know these characters better. Your relationships with them deepen, which does have a gameplay advantage, because when you initially start getting friendly with them, they get you like sort of this little trinket that's an equipable, one more thing to add to something that you can change for your run. Ooh, I'll use this trinket this time. But with a number of them, you can increase your standing with them so much that you get additional things that are relevant to gameplay. Now, that's not true for every character, but it's true for enough of them that you just get in the habit of interacting with everybody, and so that you get all the wealth of the massive amount of writing that must have taken place to pull this game together. And let's talk about the theming of the story for a little bit, because there's something about what I love about Zagreus as a protagonist, both as a character and thematically. What he is railing against is inevitability, because he is being told from minute one of starting this game, you can't escape. You're going to die and be sent right back to hell's waiting room for all intents and purposes. Why would you even bother? And he keeps battling his way out anyways. And then later, as the story starts to unfold, because, minor spoiler, the first time you beat the boss, you haven't actually beaten the game. You need to beat the boss repeatedly to get to a major turning point in the story. And even after that, you've got more relationships to deepen to really feel like you've properly beaten the game. Because at this point, I've maxed out my relationship with every single character. Like I've 160 hours. I've unlocked pretty much everything at this point. But when that story keeps going, it's not just about him fighting against the inevitability of trying to get out of Hades. There's a sense of inevitability among the gods that the tensions between them, the way their relationships currently are, the conflicts that they have, their feelings about the other gods are inevitabilities that won't change. And ultimately, a very significant part of this story is about when you treat it as inevitable, yeah, it's gonna happen. But why would you treat it as inevitable? Why would you move forward on the basis that the thing that kind of sucks is how it will always be? So why bother? And yes, changing that thing and making it even marginally better is hard. And it's going to feel like it beats you down over and over and over again, but you can still chip at it. What it honestly reminds me of is it reminds me of the Wall of Diamond from the Doctor Who episode Heaven Sent. You feel like you cannot possibly get through this, and you're chipping away at it, but you know what? You chip at it enough, a little bit, every day, even a tiny bit, and you can alter the circumstances. You can move things forward. And it's so important because the danger of, like, in terms of messaging, of putting out this idea of, if you just wanted it enough, you could have it. That doesn't help. That's not a useful sentiment. If you just wanted it enough and you work it, this isn't just about working hard. This is about working hard and failing. You will fail over and over and over again, but those failures still have value, and the path to eventually getting anything close to like what you would want the world to be is going to be a long string of failures where you move by inches closer, barely perceptibly. And I love that as a theme. I love how it is woven not only into the story, but to the very mechanics of the game. The way the narrative and the gameplay work in this, they are so intertwined beautifully. I love the hell out of this game. It's fantastic. And I'm definitely going to prioritize playing some other Supergiant games. I need to play Transistor. I want to check out Pyre. I think they've got another one. I can't remember what it's called now, but I definitely need to check out some of their other stuff. It's just really good, and it lands just right. I was going to say it hits you hard, but it doesn't really. There's like a couple of moments that I won't spoil that did kind of hit me hard. But more than anything, it's just a slow progression that just settled on me. And I'm like, yeah. It's not about hitting you in the face with these realizations of the themings or the real meanings behind stuff. It's just getting you acclimated so that you pause and think and go, wait a minute. And it's really cool. And if I could shout out to, I personally think my favorite character in this, Dusa, the floating Medusa head who is serving the House of Hades, is freaking adorable. I love her so much. And like, there's a lot of great characters in this. Megara is also really good. But I love Dusa. Oh, and also, like, if nothing I've said up to this point has sold you on giving this game a try, Cerberus the three-headed dog is featured, and there is a dedicated button to pet him. They built into the mechanics petting the puppy. If that's not a reason to try a game, I don't know what is. Hades, did you play it? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe. I got a Patreon link up there, also link down there, and a whole bunch of other stuff besides. Link to my Twitch should be down there as well as other social media stuff. My P.O. box, hey, whatever. But, you know, not too much pressure on any of that. Take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. None of this would have been possible without my supporters over on Patreon. In particular, I want to thank Robin Powell, Raven McBain, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Robin Moore, and Shayla Gourlay. If you'd like to hear me possibly mispronounce your name, maybe consider looking at the reward tiers over on the Patreon. But either way, don't worry about it too much. Take care of yourself.